It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join News Director Paul David and News Editor Philip Catafamo as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics in Yavapai County that affect all our lives. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it is great to have you in studio with us today. We're sitting now with Coconino and Prescott National Forest Zone Fire Management Officer Brian Steinhardt. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so sorry to see you so early this year. It is. It's really sad to see you so early. I've been thinking about you now, and we're towards the end of February, and we had a couple fires pop up.
Yeah.
And then a couple more popped up, and I thought, oh, no. And then there was one down in the Phoenix area that got into BLM lands, and I thought, okay, well, that's kind of where we kind of watch fires start. They start southern part of the state and everything.
Certainly.
But then Debbie Maneely from the Prescott National Forest sends out a press release about the Yankee Doodle fire, burning 12 miles south of Prescott, 5 to 10 acres in size. And I thought, what's this all about? We don't have wildfires in the month of February in Prescott National Forest.
Well,
apparently I'm wrong.
Not typically, but I would say for the past 18 to 24 months, at least here in the Verde Valley area that we have responsibility for, we've had one fire minimum every month of the year for almost 2 years now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't hear about all of them.
No, some of them, not much bigger than a quarter acre, a couple of them, a few acres here and there. It was last January, a year ago January, we had the Sour Fire out there between I-17 and the Cherry turnoff.
Right.
And that was 1,200 acres.
Right. That was January?
That was January.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon, when you look at the dry conditions that we have, and we have this grass crop that has spawned up the previous year, unless it's getting rained on, all that grass is available, and all it takes is one simple spark or, a shooting target practice type scenario, and you've got yourself a fire.
God, and last year we had a booming monsoon season, so that grass grew really, really well.
Yeah, it did. Looking at it historically, last year's monsoon was actually considered average. It's just been so long since we've seen such a normal monsoon pattern. It seemed like it was exceptional when it was actually just an average monsoon. So,
but the grasses they grew.
Oh yeah,
it went berserk last year. I remember it clearly because it was brown all summer long. Well, all spring long.
Yeah,
and then summer hit, and then we had Backbone Fire.
Yep.
Lightning. That was lightning caused, I believe. And then the Raphael fires. Those 5 kind of combined together and created the one up there, kind of west of 89A.
Yeah, it'd have been basically northeast of Perkinsville.
Yeah.
It started out there on the west side of Sycamore Canyon, and then went all the way up,
that one was
to the top of Sycamore.
In my yard.
Yeah.
That one was dropping ash in my yard. I know the sun was orange. You could look directly at the sun. It would just be an orange ball in the sky. But that was dry grass, and then the monsoon started.
Right. After
the monsoon happened, of course, everybody got to kind of sit back and relax a little bit, and things died down.
Yeah.
I feel like last year's wildfire season, our folks, you guys, were working harder and longer last year before it was finally time for you to say, go help California or Nevada or one of their states, because that's typically how it works, right? We start out first, us in California, Southern California and us, we start off first with wildfire season.
Yeah.
And then as our monsoon hits, we're supposed to kind of be able to slow down on firefighting.
Yep.
And then you guys get dispatched further north as the summer progresses.
Yeah, we get a chance to catch our breath, and then we start moving around the western United States to help out our neighbors that are having some problematic fires. So last year it definitely was a long season locally.
Yeah.
And Backbone, of course, lightning, and then you had Raphael, which was a handful of lightning fires that all came together. And in a lot of those circumstances, we wouldn't have seen fires move to the degree that they did in those particular fuels, except for the abundant grass that's out there. And you start looking at the drought impacts, and where people often get confused is drought is not this year or next year and every other year. Drought is a long-term concept. Now, last year we had a dry year leading into the monsoons, which contributes to the drought, but the drought's been going on for close to 30 years. The last real wet period in Arizona was in the mid-'80s. So when you look at that overall, we've been deficit for probably 30 years. And over that period of time, the drought conditions have changed the fuels, all the vegetation out there. We saw juniper die off last year, significant amount of juniper die off. We were talking about it in the spring. Well, then we started seeing the manzanita dying off as well, which is, you know, a little unusual because it's a very hardy plant. So when you start seeing all that happening and those species disappear, it opens up that growing space for the grass to fill in. So in places where normally you might have seen maybe a couple hundred acres in a juniper patch with wind burn up, there was a grass component that allowed it to carry through, and then you get the Raphael fire for 70,000 acres. You know, and then you get the backbone with the grasses that are down there in that Fossil Creek country, and it just kept pushing west, and you know, 40,000 acres later, you know, it's kind of a testament to where we're headed in the future with regards to the cycle that the vegetative structure is under. You know, you get into these drought patterns, things die off, more easily cured, such as grasses, fuel types start to come in, and then you start getting your fires, and it starts cleaning that stuff up, and then it just starts all over again. So I would say it's probably been a long time since an area like this has seen fires of that magnitude. I would also say that prior to European settlement of the area, it probably happened, you know, on a fairly, a more frequent basis, I would say. But,
I would say, yeah.
You know, it's just probably not more than every 100, 150 years you start to see something like that. And this, I think, is what we're going to be seeing as fairly normal for the next few years until something changes with regards to our dry conditions.
Oh, I don't like to hear that. Lake Mead is at an all historical low. Lake Powell's at a historical low.
Well, and we're under a La Nina weather pattern, so for us, that's warm and dry winters. And so the way that we're looking at it is, we don't want the fires this time of year any more than anybody else does. I mean, we understand in the summertime that's when, you know, Mother Nature really likes to do those types of things. But in this time of year, everything we've had so far has been human related, and because we are under that warm dry La Nina pattern, it just makes everything out there available to burn.
That's the point we're trying to get across, is that every fire that I've reported on over the last 2-3 weeks has been preventable. It's not like it's Mother Nature causing these fires. These are people.
These are people.
The Yankee Doodle fire, I always ask Debbie, what was the cause? She says, the cause is under investigation. I said, give me something different than that. What was the cause?
It's still under investigation. I have not heard the official cause, but I can say this much. We haven't had any lightning.
Right? We haven't had any lightning.
You know, and there's nothing out there for spontaneous combustion. So it kind of trends towards, it's a human-caused ignition. Specific source, I don't know.
Right.
So
it's sad because they've all been that way, and it's been up to the Yankee Doodle fire. We were doing a story, we did like 2 or 3 in 1 week, where it was people out burning brush, and they're burning it in 30-mile-an-hour winds, and then it gets away from them, and they seem surprised by that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, for me it's secondhand knowledge to know, you know, when you should burn something and when you shouldn't, because I've done it for as long as I have. But it seems like the average homeowner or property owner doesn't necessarily quite understand how fire can interact with its environment and do these things. And so I don't know if we need to start a new education campaign or what we need to do, but we got to change something.
Yeah.
You know, and then you look at the number of fires we've had related to target shooting, which around here has actually been fairly significant. We've had quite a few. Educating people on where you should be target shooting into what kind of a scenario. Shooting into dry grass, it doesn't even have to ricochet with a spark. The bullet coming out is hot enough itself, it lands in the right spot, and you've got yourself an ignition.
That's a good point too. Yeah, the round coming out of the gun is
That's
already
all it takes.
So it just takes heat.
That's it.
One of these days the sun's just going to be setting Arizona on fire. I hope not, but I feel like sometimes that might be the case. Let's take our first break. Coconino Prescott National Forest Zone Fire Management Officer Brian Steinhardt is with us in studio today. Stick around, Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
Terrifying Jobs, Bull Rider, take 2. Cliff, this seems like a really terrifying job. Why do you do it?
I love protecting the bull riders when they get bucked up.
How big are these bulls?
12 to 2,200 pounds of pure muscle.
You're not cowed by any of this, obviously. Is there anything that scares you?
Yeah, distracted drivers terrify me.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
The EPA says C&B Construction ranks in the top 1% nationally. C&B Construction invites you to see what energy efficiency and indoor air quality can be. We have won another Department of Energy Innovation Award, and C&B Construction is the only contractor in the country to win 6 consecutive EPA Indoor Air Plus awards. Experience our zero-energy, move-in ready homes at Crossroads at Mingus.
C&B Construction, locally respected, nationally recognized. Find out more at C&B Homes.com.
Award-winning Soundbites Grill is an entertainment restaurant located in Uptown Sedona at the Hyatt Pinion Point Resort. Open for lunch and dinner, featuring fresh fish, all-natural hand-cut beef, even a full vegan menu. Family-friendly, open 11:30 to 9, late dining on Friday and Saturday. Soundbites Grill has some of the best views of the Sedona Red Rocks. Offers world-class entertainment, food, fun, and music.
Welcome back to Countywide with Brian Steinhardt from the Coconino and Prescott National Forest. He's their Zone Fire Management Officer. Sorry about that, Brian.
That's okay.
Okay, so we've talked about the Yankee Doodle fire, just the shock that was here. We were just talking about the fire that hit Colorado.
Yes.
January, I believe it was. Wiped out a bunch of houses.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about the drought, too, just this last spring. And I've noticed the Weather Service says Nevada and Colorado also are not getting hit with rain or snow. So that means we got nothing feeding the Colorado River.
Correct.
So it's going to be dry. You guys got to be worried about this. I got to think it, right? I mean, I'm worried about it, and I'm not even a firefighter.
Yeah, honestly, I would say for the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks even, the thought has crossed all of our minds about, what is it going to look like moving forward? Do we get a good spring green up and that kind of helps mitigate the fires for a few weeks, or does it kind of be more of a minimal green up and we're still in the same situation we find ourselves in right now? And so, we brought our folks on that were in a non-pay status, brought them back a little bit early. Some of that's also to help with some prescribed fire plans that we have. We've got areas that we need to get treated so that, we have some form of a fuel break or some ability to try to control a fire in the future. So we got to get that stuff accomplished. But it's also just having enough folks on hand to be able to respond to something like the Yankee Doodle fire or something off of I-17 and whatnot. It's... it doesn't seem like we get a break anymore. It's right. Year round.
Yeah, it really doesn't feel like there is a break anymore. You hear about the fires in Colorado. I mean, California barely got done with their fires that were just unbelievable this last year. And then there's a whole town in Colorado going up in flames. You just don't hear. It's been most of my career, you didn't hear about an entire town going up in flames. But I got to say, over the last 5 years or so, I hear about it at least once or twice a year, and I'm always surprised by it.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of surprised by it, but it really kind of feeds back to the idea of how we are with drought conditions. And it's not just Arizona, it's parts of New Mexico, it's California, it's
Southwest.
Nevada, it's Utah, it's a lot of places that it's affecting. And so if you have the similar fuel types of dry grass without any sort of cool temperatures and some high humidities or moisture, it's available to burn. And so the Colorado fire, for example, dry grasses adjacent to a significant amount of homes, and I believe it was 70 or 80 mile an hour winds were pushing that thing. It's once it got started, there's not much you're going to do.
It sounds like Arizona. Those are the fires that we've been fighting here in the state, where we've got those strong winds in the spring that we're all accustomed to. And I know I've done stories with you guys in the past where it's not, we can't get down there and fight it right there. There's just no way.
Yeah.
You are miles out in front of it trying to create this breaker that it can run into and hopefully stop and then backburn towards it.
Right. Yeah, you try to get out someplace where you can create a barrier, you know, and that's the thing, is that you have to get out a ways depending on how fast that fire is moving, because you have to have enough time to put that barrier in place. And then, like I said, we do a burnout operation and send fire back towards itself and consume the fuel in front of it to put it out.
Should we be concerned? The public right now this year, just the look of it so far, like, okay, Flagstaff's received 26 out of the normal 90 inches of snow.
Yeah.
And then rain has been really scarce. Not a whole lot of moisture going on. I'm just kind of curious and you drive down the road and it's brown as far as you can see.
I would say being concerned is appropriate with regards to your activities as an individual and your neighbors and what they're doing.
Think before we act?
Think before we act. I mean, that's where the concern would come in. I mean, Mother Nature's not going to launch us a bunch of fires here in the next few weeks. If it did, that'd be a very rare event. While it's possible, it's not probable. This all comes down to human behavior and thinking before you act. Be cautious with what you're doing with fire, and put your fires out. You know, if you're burning in your backyard, you don't leave it smoldering. You go wet it down and make sure, and you grab a shovel and you stir it and you turn it just like we do on wildfires. I mean, we don't just leave a smoking edge and call it a great day. We clean those edges up and make sure that it has no potential to spread out. That's where I would say being concerned would be appropriate, is with personal actions and just human behavior in general, because that's where the threat's going to come from up until the onset of the monsoons.
If my community backs up to the Forest Service land, which many of them do in Yavapai and Coconino County, what should I be thinking about doing to my property?
You know, one of the first things you ought to do is contact your local municipal fire department and ask for them to come out and do a Firewise inspection. They have the authority to come out and look at your property, and then they can give you some instructions and some guidance on what you should do to help protect your property inside the boundaries of your property line. You know, and so, you know, it's removing certain brush out to 30 feet. It's trimming some trees out for 50 feet. Things to that nature. It's very specific to what your property has as far as the type of vegetation that's there. But it's an investment, but in the long run, you gain the potential of protecting your property from complete loss. And so I can't stress enough how important being Firewise is. And it seems like, you know, we get a little bit of interest in Firewise when we have fires like in 2006, the Brins and the La Barranca. There was a lot of interest for a couple of years, and then it faded to the back of the mind again because it wasn't in the forefront. And then the slide fire happened in 2014. There was some more interest for about 2 years. Then it faded again. And then last year, Raphael and Backbone, two fires that technically started in the backcountry, is what we call it, because it was remote locations. But they both moved very quickly into the front country where it was in everybody's face. And sure enough, there's renewed interest in Firewise. But Firewise comes with a financial cost, and so there are ways and means to offset that. Working with your local fire departments, they can help you navigate some of that and help you achieve some form of protection of your property for yourself, because really that's where it falls to as a homeowner. It's your property. You have the responsibility and the right to protect that. You can't expect us to show up last minute when the fire's charging at it and save it necessarily if you haven't done anything to help us in that process. We don't have the time or the capacity to be able to do that. You know, you look at the Colorado situation, 1,000 homes.
Right.
I can't put enough people on the ground fast enough to cover every single one of those.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Exactly.
So everything you do prior to that event happening just helps give you a measure of success that your property will potentially weather the storm and you come out with your possessions intact on the other side.
I follow all the wildfires in the state, Brian. When I see them popping up in southern Arizona, I broadcast them on our stations to let people know, hey, wildfire season's kicking off in the state. And we will watch it progress slowly but surely and move up the state until it finally gets into our backyard. I feel like in between that, I'm doing stories about grass that somebody was burning their yard, brush that they were burning the yard, or a campfire that wasn't extinguished, or this and that. And these smaller fires that happen up here, I'll call them smaller fires. I talk about these other fires so that we start thinking about it up here, but it doesn't seem to really kick in until that sun turns orange. There's ash falling all over the place, and we've got a really serious situation. And it seems like then the area seems to pick up on it and say, oh, we need to be really careful with fire. And then we stop seeing those kind of fires happening. So, I don't know. we try. I try. We got to take another break. Coconino and Prescott National Forest Zone Fire Management Officer Brian Steinhardt with us today. Stick around. Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is going to be Addie's room.
I am blind,
I think you're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah.
I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Ways down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know it's there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Your carpet is the largest air filter in your home, trapping dust, dirt, and germs from the air that your family members breathe, even the furriest ones.
That's why it's important to keep your carpet and tile clean and hygienic with regular cleanings by Zero-Res. Zero-Res uses state-of-the-art technology and ZR water, not soap or harsh chemicals, so zero residue is left on your home surfaces.
Schedule your appointment today because a clean home is a healthy home. Visit ZeroResNorthernArizona.com.
The mouth is the gateway to the digestive system. Studies indicate a correlation between oral health and full body health. Regular cleanings and checkups can help protect you. New patients are welcome at Arizona Smile Designers in Cottonwood. There's a full smile worth of services all offered under one roof. Whitening and cosmetic to implants and smile reconstruction. Find out more or request an appointment online at azsmiledesigners.com.
Welcome back, Countywide. We've got just a couple of minutes left with Brian Steinhardt here. We talked about defensible space, how helpful that is. You mentioned that the Forest Service is bringing on some extra folks and stuff early. You said there was a 10-person team as well?
Yeah, so with the passing of the infrastructure bill here late last fall, there's additional money that has been identified and positions being created to help us moving forward. And one of the primary resources that we were looking for was a 10-person fuels crew here in the Verde Valley. Their goal is to be fuels mitigation, prescribed fire implementation, things like that. Because the first phase of being effective in wildland fire management is to have a good prevention program, have a good mitigation program, and then you reduce the potential for having a larger fire. So we went after a 10-person fuels crew, and that was actually approved. We're in the process of filling 4 leadership positions right now, and then we'll hire 6 temporary firefighters, fuel types to come in, and we'll start the process there. But that's going to give us some extra capacity to be able to do some of that work, and then they'll also augment our existing firefighting resources. So by a factor of about a quarter of what we normally carry. Okay. So it's actually a pretty big boost.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, we're feeling very comfortable being able to have this opportunity to bring this in and see what kind of success we can get around here with their work.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got less than a minute left. So, of
course,
I was going to ask you about the winter burning projects. I know you guys have had some, and you've got some you're still hoping to work on. And as those happen, Debbie sends out press releases and we'll let you know where the smoke's going to be and the impacts and things of that nature. So, really, I brought Brian in today because the Yankee Doodle fire happened, and I was like, this can't be already. It's only February, people. It's only February. May and June used to be our big wildfire months, and I'd like to see it go back to that instead of being something that we see all winter long.
It would be nice, but as we say around the office, if it isn't raining, it's always fire season here. And that's just because of the vegetation we've got.
It's not been doing that. The bad news is they declared mega drought for the area too. Yeah. So that's just a dandy thing. All right. So Brian, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. And that is today's Countywide. We always thank you for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.